This is a tutorial for the NEAHL website and for the Ramp Gamesheet app. So NEAHL, we have our website, NEAHL.ca. We try to put a lot of information up there for you. If you look under your main menu, we've got some league information, so contact information, some other things. Associations, we've got a list of all the association contacts, the form that you use to update that, which you have to do every year, team registration form. There's also a link within that form to an Excel sheet if you'd rather update, submit teams that way. A bunch of information on the Ramp Gamesheet app, which we'll look at in a bit. We're collecting ref and chief contact information this year. Things like that. If you find that there's problems with your team roster later, there's a form where you can ask for things to be fixed. So somebody's on there who shouldn't be, or their name is spelled wrong or whatever, has come over with the wrong contact information, you can submit it that way. Hockey Alberta, we just have a bunch of links that we think are useful. The minor hockey, that's just their minor hockey information page. Bylaws and regulations, if you want to know why some of the rules are about, say, affiliations, you'll go look at read section B, minor hockey. And we also use Appendix 5, minimum suspensions. We use that all the time. We have to follow that anytime there's a suspension. I do have the minimum suspension guidelines uploaded as a PDF here. I've got a link to the playing rules. It's the actual rule book. Hockey Canada, if you go to this link to download the rule book, you can actually download the rule book as an app on your phone. So looks just like that. You can look at it by contents. You can search for things. Very handy. I use that all the time. The MHA, Minor Hockey Association, and Minor League Season Pathway, a couple years ago, maybe more than that now, Hockey Alberta put together pretty much all the information that associations and leagues need, and they put it into one page. So it's actually a really great resource. If you just go there, you can find forms, handbooks, you can find the officials clinics, right? You can get all the volunteer information, all kinds of topics. If you want to know about discipline, click discipline, you'll get discipline stuff. It's really, really useful. It was very well done of them. Alberta 1 is the idea of Hockey Alberta that all leagues, we're all going to be playing under the same rules. So it shouldn't make a difference which league you're in. So Alberta is the website that's kind of pulling all that together. There's a link to the website. We follow their their weather travel policy. It's always been an issue for us being a larger league geographically. Alberta 1 regulations, policies, and procedures. That's a useful manual to read. That's all league specific stuff. Conduct Unbecoming is a new thing they've put in their policy manual this year, and I actually just stuck it on the website because I thought that might be something useful. If you have an unruly spectator, it's specifically under there now that if you look at the second paragraph, leagues can prevent any spectator from viewing any game due to unbecoming conduct, right? So if you don't already have a policy, you probably do, but if you need a little extra teeth or you don't have one, you can point to that. Put some information for officials, so they have their own website. Put up the rates. Most associations, all associations, should have had that emailed out to them already. Another link to the playing rules, officials clinics, playoff information. Right now, it's just got some provincial information, but once we have our playoff information ready to send out, which will be in November, we will post that there. We'll have it finalized in January, so it might not get posted till January, actually. U7 and U9 in pond hockey, we don't run that under the league, but last year, as a service to our members, we collected contact information for teams. So this year I'm doing it through Google Docs, so you don't have to wait for me to find your form and update everything. So if you click on the contact form, it takes you to Google Doc where you can put in your information, and where it says team contacts, it takes you to the Google Sheet where everything that you've put in the form, as soon as you submit it, it gets added to the sheet. So that's where you can look for those contacts. Not too many people have added them yet, but there will be a lot of contacts by the time everyone's done registering. And categories, that's just your usual U11, U13, U15, U18. Right now, we have every tier listed during registration. So whatever you're registered in, that's where we're going to put you. But because of the number of teams, we don't have enough teams to run a separate tier at every level. So some of those will end up combined. Like U11, no, there's lots and lots of U11 teams, but U18, we'll probably do, a 1-2 split. Probably combine NBC, the non-body checking tiers, things like that. So those will be, once the registration's done, those will be adjusted. Okay, so back to associations, our ramp Gamesheet app info. This is just a page where we wrote out a whole bunch of information about the app because that was new. A lot of people struggled with that. If anything interesting and new comes out, I post it up here. There's links to some tutorials that were done. They were already done by the time we started last year, and the app has had a big upgrade done in December last year. So they don't 100% match, but it's basically the same. But anyways, there's links there if you want to see. You can download the app. We have, so that whole test category, I just made up 8 teams, put in a bunch of games, and made the login information available. So this team login stuff, that's to log in on the app. Sorry, not on the app, to log in on the website. Just like we used to always do with our teams when you have to go in and enter your game sheets. And then this section are the app codes. So if you want to use the app and try, see what happens if you log in as the scorekeeper, as the official, as the home manager, as the visitor manager. All of the codes are available there for all of these games. Just keep in mind the codes lock out after 24 hours. So don't go back and pick a game from September 1st. You won't be able to do anything. But you're welcome to use any future games. You can't wreck them. Send them to your officials. Send them to your parents. People should be looking at that app well before the first time they're using it in a game. Okay? And that's exactly what it's for. And like I said, you can't wreck anything on there. Team logins. I'm just going to show a couple of things about that for anyone who's new. So at the very top left of any ramp website, or on the very bottom, I should have picked a different page, where it says admin login. You can click on that, again, from any ramp website. So Alberta One is a ramp website, for example. A lot of associations have ramp websites. Use your team login code on that ramp page. My logins aren't, my internet's slow, so I just already opened these. On your dashboard, so the screen you get when you first log in, there is a team code that is to be used in the app, and I'll talk about that in a minute. A couple other things you would use from the app: the league games. Oops. So league games, you can still access them the same way we used to before we had the app. That's still available. So home team manager has the green edit button. Visiting team manager has the verify button only. If you're looking for a game, please be aware that this the date defaults to the day before the day you're on. So if I just open this, it's going to start on September 16th. So if I want to look up a September 2nd game, I've got to change the date up there. A couple of things about this I just want to show you. So I'm going to use this Oilers September 16th game as my example in the Gamesheet app. So I'm logged in as Oilers. So I'm the home team manager for this game. Something that you can do, so this is an example, but if you know that there's going to be a player serving a suspension and it hasn't already been marked by the deputy, because there's something deputies can do on the back end, but if you play a game Saturday night and then again Sunday morning, your deputy might not have had time to look at it, right? We've all got kids playing hockey too. So the home team manager can also mark in a suspension. So if I want Connor Brown suspended, I got to show that he's in the game, and then I can mark him as suspended. And when I update this roster, that'll be saved and it'll show up in the app. I've got an alternative if you don't want to do that, but that's one way to get it to show up in the app. And if you're the visiting team, say you played at a tournament and your kid got suspended, the deputy can't enter that. We can only do that for suspensions that show up through our games. So you can ask the other manager if you want to put the player in as suspended for that game. But I do have an alternative to that. So that's games. The Gamesheet app codes are underneath. So if you look in the menu underneath the app codes, they're all going to be listed. But you're only going to see, if you're the visitor, you're only going to see the visitor code. If you're the home team for that game, you'll see the other 3 codes. You're not going to see all of them. I just gave all of them on our sample page because I want people to practice, but normally you're not going to get all of those codes. And if you have the wrong codes, I can pretty much guarantee you that the reason is that the game got entered with the home and visitor teams mixed up, put in the wrong way, and you'll have to ask your deputy to switch it. Or you can ask me, but deputy might be faster. And then, let's see, league players. Let's see if I open this. No, I didn't. League players, you're not entering your rosters. They're being synced from HCR. However, you do still have access for your players to add jersey numbers. So you can't add anybody and you can't change their names. But if their jersey numbers are wrong or they didn't have jersey numbers in HCR, please go in and make sure they have jersey numbers. AP players, that's fine if they don't, obviously. You won't know. My personal tip is I always put AP players in as jersey number 99, so they show up on the bottom of the list instead of on the top. I just find that more convenient. And then last thing, every team should still get your HCR, your official roster, that PDF. It's got the Hockey Alberta symbol. You have to get it from your register. They download it from HCR. Please upload a copy of that PDF. Because when the players sync over, it pulls everybody who's on the roster. So even if a player's been released, because they exist on the roster, it's going to come over. So deputies will still want to verify players. So that's the website. Before we look at the app, just in case somebody is new and has not seen, the app is just taking all the game sheet information and letting you enter it electronically. So all of the information that you entered, like when I was on the website and I looked at the games, if I could enter all the rosters, games, penalties that way, it all gets saved to Ram's database. I can do it through the app, get saved to Ram's database. If I enter it on the website, it'll show up on the app. If I enter it on the app, it'll show up on the website once everything's synced. But the information you're actually putting in there is the information from a game sheet. So if you've never seen one, this one, our NEAHL ones have home on the left, visitor on the right. Some associations and some leagues do that in the other way around. So top left, you'd have the home roster. Underneath that, you'd have all the penalties by the home team. Just to the right of it, you'd see the goals, right? The period, time, who scored it, who assisted. Same thing on the other side. And then in the middle, it's just general information. So it's a league game or it's a playoff game. Game number is the sanction number, date, where it was played, division. We don't say Adam anymore. We say U11, and the tier. And then refs could sign and you could put any notes in there. So that's what a game sheet is. So everything that we're doing here on the app is to put this information in. And we used to, in the rosters, we'd write if someone was suspended or whatever. Our penalties, the period, the number of the player who got the penalty, who served the penalty, what the infraction was, how many minutes long the penalty was. Off is when they got the penalty, so they came off the ice. Start is when the penalty started. Usually it'll be the same as the off time, but sometimes it's not. So if I get slashing and then I was lippy to the ref as I came off, my slashing penalty might start at 6:02, but my unsportsmanlike conduct penalty doesn't start until I finish my slashing penalty, so it will start at 4:02. Or the other team scores and it starts earlier, things like that. Or you've got 3 people in the penalty box because you can only, the minimum number of skaters is going to be 3, so you're only ever having 2 serving their penalties at once. That's just in the rules. So if there's 3 people in the box, that guy number 3, he doesn't even start serving his penalty until one of the other ones has expired. So he might get an extra long time. So that's start. And then on is when they went back on the ice. So the penalty's over, they went back on the ice. So usually if it's a 2-minute penalty, it'll be 2 minutes if it's timed. But if it's, like I said, if it's stacked penalty or if it's coincidentals or something where it's not timed, they have to wait. So if it finished at 4:02, but it was not a time penalty, they may have to wait until, or they do have to wait until the next whistle. So they might not get on the ice until, 3:07 or even longer. Okay, so that's Gamesheet. So now we're going to look at the app. So Gamesheet app, if you don't already have an account, you'll have to create an account. If you use the Ramp Team app, you can use the same account, but I believe if you use Ramp for registration, you can't use the same account, as far as I know. In the side menu, in that top right-hand corner, officials accounts, we don't use it. That's if you have the officials assigning software, and our league doesn't use that. Team accounts, you can put in the 8-digit code. If you remember when we looked at the dashboard, there was an 8-digit code. If you enter that for your team, so this is my last year team, this is my Oilers team for this year, it's going to automatically pull over all the home and visitor codes for my games that are posted. So if you look through, I've got Oilers all the way to the end of the year, instead of me having to add each code individually for each game. Once you've added that, if it doesn't come over right away, you just click refresh from internet, because I put in that team code, waited a long time, and it still didn't come over. So refresh from internet brought over the games. For the officials and for any game sheet codes, you're going to have to add those up here. So all you do is you type in your whatever the 9-digit code was. I don't know how many numbers that is, and just click add game code and it'll be added. So, and you have some options. I can show past games or not. So I was doing some experimenting with the September 9th game. If I don't want them to show, I get rid of it. Show older dates first. We'll just change the order that it displays in. Depends how you like it. So we're looking at the September 16th game, because it's within 24 hours, right? It logs out in 24 hours. So I've already entered the codes. I have my game sheet access, home team access, visiting team access, official access. So first I'm going to look at visiting team access. Also, when you enter a code, it'll give you a little pop-up that says, do you want to go to the game? So if you're scorekeeping, you put it in, you can go right into the game immediately, but you don't have to. So the only thing the visiting team can do is enter the visiting team roster. So I was already messing around with this. So I already have a bunch entered, but you're just tapping them. Tap them to enter. Now, I don't know why it's not doing this today. Normally you can tap on the player and then mark if they're a captain or an assistant captain. It's not working right now, but that could be just Ramp doing some kind of updates or working on that feature. But up until today when I'm doing this, that worked. So who knows? If you have a player playing who's, they forgot their jersey and they're wearing a different one, or you have an AP player showing up and they don't have a jersey, you can put in their jersey number here. Okay. And you can see the other team's roster, but you can't put anything in. And you can see, remember, we went online and I marked a couple suspended. So if they're done online, they'll show up as suspended. Same thing if the deputy puts one in as a suspension. This is how they'll show up. You'll see that red suspended mark. So I like this. I'm signing it. Yep, I confirm this is right. I've signed my roster. I can also go and look at information about the game. I can look at the goals. I can look at the penalties. Nothing's happened yet. I can look at the official write-ups. I haven't put anything in for this game yet, so there's nothing there yet. Visitor team does the same. Visitor team. Officially, visitor team should be putting their roster in first, but we're not. We're generally not picking from so many players that it will make a difference who the visitors put in. So home team. Same deal. I can put in look at all my suspended players. I can put in whoever I want in this game. Got to have Connor McDavid, I guess. That would be smart. So put in whoever, and I can look. So connects players. So when we looked at the visitor one, I hadn't put anyone in the roster for the home team, so they were all crossed out. Because the visitor ones is done, I can see who is in the game, who have they put, and then everyone else is crossed out. And you can see at the bottom that I had signed it. So once I'm happy with my roster, sign digitally, and you can still edit this after, but moving on, and I can, if anything else had been done in the game, I could observe it. So the big one is the Gamesheet access. So Gamesheet access, you can do online mode or offline mode. I usually do online mode because I like it to sync up as I'm going along. But if you have bad internet or whatever, you can enter this game, like go on the app and enter the game. So maybe you have to stand in the lobby to get internet and then go into the rink, do everything offline, go out to the lobby at the breaks and upload stuff. Okay, so I'll just go through each thing. Up until a minute ago, there was an info. I think Ramp is doing some updates. There was an I button that would gave you kind of a game summary. You'd go through and you'd see the rosters and whatever. It was basically just information about the game. I'm not even seeing it up here right now. Probably it'll come back shortly. The clock symbol. Oh, and this is also for the home and visitors. I forgot to show you this, but it works the same way. Under the clock symbol, I've got information about the game. There's a section called user notes. So, and I could do this as the home manager too. If I want to add a user note, I can say, you know, number. So my suspensions weren't marked. Number 99, Wayne Gretzky, Oilers. Be nice to put the team in. It's easier. Is serving suspension 4 of 5. So if the suspension isn't otherwise marked, just put in a note. So the scorekeeper can do it, home team manager can do it, visitor team manager can do it. The user notes don't really show who did them, so that's why I say put the team number in. And if anything else happened, you could add a note here. The power went out and we made the game period shorter or something, like anything like that you can put. This is where you would have put timeouts, but they've got a timeout section now. So general information, user notes, scores will update when you add a score on the app. These will change, so you don't have to put them in here. When you're done, you'll click on game completed. I don't usually do this, but you can disable roster changes. So once the game starts, too bad home and away manager, you can't do anything else for that. You will still be able to do stuff. So for instance, there's a rule that if the player was dressed and you know, on the ice or in the box at the start of the game and they were inadvertently left off the roster, they can be added later in the game when you realize there was a mistake, assuming that your roster is not otherwise full. So, you know, that's where you would change the roster after the game had started, but it's going to be fairly rare. You can add a timeout. So I'm not wasting my timeout in period 1. Period 3 at 1 minute and 10 seconds left, the Oilers had a timeout. Just record it there and it's going to show up. These were the timeouts. Current period, you'll have to adjust this. Whatever you have as current period is going to be what defaults when you're adding goals and penalties. So it's more convenient if you keep that updated. And if somebody's watching along at home, it's nice to, you know, if you're syncing this up and they're watching the scores live, they know where the game is at. This is neat, and I don't think this was here last year, where you can add all your goals and penalties from this screen. So if you click on it, you go right to the whichever part whatever one you're clicking on to do it. But I still do it from the other part. Shots on goal you can record here. We don't worry about power plays, but God bless you if you're the kind of organized person who tracks that. Have at her. Period length in minutes, 20 minutes, and you got to hit done. 20 minutes done, 20 minutes done. Maybe it's not. Maybe you're one of those associations that has a very, very hard stop. You're Lloydminster and you cannot go overtime. Maybe you had to make your third period 15 minutes in order to finish the game. You would adjust it there. Scorekeeper has a list of all the Gamesheet codes. So the other logins don't have this. Scorekeeper does. So if game sheet person, if the officials didn't get the code from the manager, you know, if you keep post-it notes at your clock and a little post-it note on their locker room key tag, and they can take it with them. So if anyone doesn't have the code, home team can have it. And then all the signatures are going to show here. I was the same person logged in for visitor and home, so they're all me. But whatever, that's why you should be using your own account. So whatever account you used, it's going to show up that you're the one who signed off on that game. Rosters. So rosters, you just see everything that they see. I've checked it as you cannot make changes to the roster, but say I realized that was a mistake and I need to make a change. Turn off the disable part. And now I, as the game sheet person, I can make changes to either roster. This little scorecard, that is the goal thing. So you're either adding a home goal or a visitor goal. So I had set the period as period 2, so this is going to default to 2. If you don't change that, it's going to say 1 every time. So whatever, it's 10 minutes and 15 seconds in the second period. And you can check, is it an even strength, power play, shorthanded, penalty shot, empty net? So I'm making this is an even strength goal. Oilers scored. If you click the wrong thing, if you put home and you meant away, no problem. You can change it right here. But the default, if you click home goal, is that the home team is going to show up there. And then this is lovely. The scorer, it gives you a list, but only of those players. So not my entire roster, only of the players that I've checked off as being in the game. So I don't have very many in this game. Those guys are going to be tired. If there's an assist, you can put in the assist. This is kind of funny. Oh, they don't even give you the option. They used to give you the option to put in the guy who scored, and then they'd tell you even Wayne Gretzky can't be the assist for his own goal. If there's no assist, you don't put anything. Save it. And then you'll have a list of goals. I'm going to add a visitor goal. Whatever, 1 minute and 3 seconds. I'm going to say it was a power play, even though I have no penalties. Canucks, I could change that if I needed to. So I have my list of goals so far. There's been 2 goals in this game. So it's 1-1. If I were to go back over here to under that clock symbol, remember I said the game score updates. So every time I put in a goal, it updates that. If you have a lot of goals and you want to check them, you can sort this. You can have just your Oilers goal, your home goals, just your visitor goals, or all of them. If it's all of them, they show them in chronological order. If you need to edit a goal, just tap on it and you go back in there and you can change anything. Oops, that was the wrong guy. Here, he gets the assist. You know, or they tell you the assist after. Put it in after. Super easy. Penalties. Same deal. The period's going to default to whatever you have your period set at the time. So when it's third period, I make sure I change it to third period because I do U18, always lots of penalties. And it's just one less thing for me to tap. So whatever the time was. For the infractions, you have to search for them. And maybe I'll post a list of our infractions on the website actually. So it's not a list coming from, like it's based on the rules, but Hockey Alberta isn't providing this list. They're taking the list from the way we have it entered on our league website. So I mean, I could have just put head contact double minor, but we have the rule number. We have how many minutes, right? I guess I could take out those 4 PIMs now since I see they automatically put it in. But anyways, so head contact, these are all the options of penalties that have the word head in it. So double minors, majors, whatever. Keep in mind, if you ever have a major penalty, so once you've done this, whichever team it was, you can choose the player, and if somebody else served it, you can put that in. If it's a major penalty, there is always a game misconduct with it. If you look at the playing rules, look up any major penalty, and it always says a major and a game misconduct. So every major penalty is going to have one. So instead of me having to put in twice, because this guy's going to get a game misconduct, I'm just going to put in a second infraction. And this is handy. Your kid gets a slashing, but he's lippy, and then he got it unsportsmanlike on the way to the box. So he's going to have 2 penalties at the same time. And maybe he was extra lippy and then got a misconduct. He's going to have 3 penalties. As many penalties as you want. You can keep adding infractions. So it'll be just for that one player. But you can also, I think you can copy penalties. We'll try that in a minute. So this guy got a major penalty. So head contact major, game misconduct. So it saves me having to enter this twice. It was an Oilers. Again, it's only from my list. Okay, Connor McDavid, I guess, is going to get the blame. He's getting kicked out of the game because it's a game misconduct. So this time start and time on, if you remember from the game sheet, this is the time that the penalty started being served. So usually that's the time that they got the penalty. So if I was doing this, I'd put in my 2:19, whatever it was. But if you've got stacked penalties, it won't start at the same time. Optional time on is when they go back on the ice, but obviously my guy's kicked out. I'm not going to worry about that. So save that. So both of those showed up. Connor McDavid. Now, let's say Connor McDavid, somebody else got a penalty at the exact same time as him, right? There was some kind of scuffle or something. So instead of creating a new one, I'm just going to copy penalty. So it's going to bring me back with the basic information will be the same. So I can, maybe it wasn't a head contact. Maybe this was the other guy. Maybe the reason he got a head contact is somebody on the other side slashed Connor McDavid. So he's getting a slashing minor that happened at the same time. Whatever happens. So it just saves a little tiny bit of time if you're copying the penalty. I'm only putting 1 penalty in here. I'm not adding a bunch of infractions. And I'm going to save it. Now, later on, when this guy's finished serving his penalty, maybe I want to go back in. I'm going to edit my penalty. There were no further problems. He got back on the ice at 17:58. Right? If it was a coincidental or something that's not timed, might be a 2-minute penalty, but he might be in the box for 5 or 6 minutes. So if you take a note of it, you can put the time that he got back on the ice. Time on is time back on the ice. Yeah, so home visitor penalty, you add them the same way, as many as you want. And then you can sort them, the same thing. Here's all my home penalties. Oops. Here's all my visitor penalties. I like doing the time on also if somebody was watching this online and they want to know if the penalty's over. When you show a time on, it lets them know, okay, penalty's over, they survived it, right? Okay, so that's penalties. You can edit them. You can copy. You can do multiple infractions. And then, okay, so something I want to mention with penalties. There is a thing that's happened because we're not NHL refs here. We're just regular. A lot of times young kids reffing. A lot of times guys who've reffed for a long time and things change. So here's a thing that'll happen. You might get an elbowing penalty. Elbowing doesn't exist anymore. If they've elbowed to the head, it should be called as a head contact. If it's to the body, I can't even remember. My ref kid told me, I don't know, it's roughing or something. But sometimes they'll call a penalty that doesn't exist. If that's the case, I mean, if you get a chance, ask the ref. Okay, like all of the penalties that we have on here, I went through the referee case book to make sure they all exist. And then I had somebody else look. I had a couple, higher level refs look at the list to make sure it was good. So it's possible that I missed something. If that's the case, put something in for now. Let Webadmin know that's me, and and if that's an actual infraction, I can add it to the list and we can adjust it later. One that I see not super often, but once or twice a year, I'll get a ref, they'll call ineligible player. And what they mean is illegal equipment. So I guess, because the rules changed. So I guess they used to, ineligible player, your neck guard fell off, your chin strap wasn't done. They'd call it ineligible player. They've changed that because now when we say ineligible player, we mean a player who should not be on the bench. They're suspended or they're not properly on the roster. Okay, and if there's an ineligible player, your coach is getting suspended for that person being that on the bench, player or bench staff. So the penalty for that is illegal equipment, but they might call it something else and you can't find it. So put something in, put a note if you have to, like under the user notes, you can say ref called ineligible player, but we couldn't find it. So we put it as, I don't know, throwing stick, whatever you thought was the closest thing for it. And then we can look at it after and fix it if we have to. And then the other thing that happens a lot are things that are double minors only. So kneeing, for example, is never 2 minutes. Kneeing is always a double minor. But every once in a while, especially if you get a younger ref, you will get them calling 2 minutes kneeing. Doesn't exist. So you'll have to enter it as double minor. I mean, we're not the NHL. It's up to you. You can let your ref in chief know that this was an issue and they can talk to their refs. If you get a chance, you can tell the ref, like, it doesn't even show up here, and maybe they'll be like, oh yeah, that's right, it's only a double minor. So kneeing, spearing, butt ending, what's another one? Slew footing. Some of those do not exist as 2 minute minors, but if it gets played and they put 2 minutes on the clock and you're kind of like, what can you do? Enter it as a double minor. That player's going to have the 4 minutes count against his accumulation of penalty minutes. And then, just let the ref in chief know, hey, this happened, and they can talk to their refs, right? People make mistakes. Oh, and another one I want to talk about, game ejection. Game ejection is only if there have been 3 stick infractions or 3 head contacts. You got minor head contact, double minor head contact, then another head contact. That player's gone. Game ejection. Stick infractions are slashing, cross-checking, butt ending, spearing, and high sticking. So if you get 3 of those, then you're also getting a game ejection. There's no suspension. There's no penalty minutes that need to be served, but they are removed from the game. But I do know sometimes, like, if they're removed from the game for anything else, that's not a game ejection. If the coach is yelling and gets kicked out of the game, that is a game misconduct, and they should be written up as such, and that coach will be getting a suspension for it. Game ejection, if you read the rules, are very specifically only 3 stick infractions, 3 head contact infractions. Okay, just checking my notes. We looked at suspensions, the summary. Okay, Gamesheet codes lock out after 24 hours, so get them entered fast. If you miss it, deputies, web admin, we have access to these game sheets through the website after, or there's stuff we can do to get access. If your officials forgot to enter their write-ups, whatever happened, they ref 8 games in a row and collapsed, exhausted, they can contact us, and there's stuff we can do about that. Okay, and then goalies is the last thing. So when the game is done, whatever your team is, whoever your goalie was, you can put in how much. You don't have to, but he played all 60 minutes. There was 1 goal against and 45 shots, whatever. You should have that recorded earlier on your sheet, and it was a tie. Save. So you can enter both goalies, or as many goalies as you need. And then official write-ups, we'll have to look at that in a minute. So once your game sheet is done, you can kind of have a quick review of stuff. If the officials or the other managers come to you and say, you know what, you called this, but they said that, or you realize you put 10, but it was actually number 11 in the box, fix whatever you need to fix. And your refs are ultimately in charge of the game sheet. So if you're not sure as a scorekeeper, you can go to the ref and say, they're telling me this, do I change it? And they can make the call for you. Anyway, so I didn't put any shots on here, but I would have if this was a real game. When I'm done, I'm going to sign digitally. Everything's right. Sign digitally. So now when you look at it, look, the game sheet person is also me. And the game is completed. By the way, if you don't mark your games as completed, then your scores, they don't get counted in the standings on the website. They only get counted once the game is marked completed. And then if you're an official, where's my official access? So the official logs in. Whatever. You can put your lines, Put in that you were the ref, whatever you want to put. Save that. Now I can look at the game. Oh, here's my I for information again. I can look at the summary of the game. I can look at I can't change anything, but I can look at them. So if I want to know who's suspended, I can check for anyone suspended here, and I can check for user notes, right? Oh, look, they wrote a note that Wayne Gretzky was suspended. He better not be in the game. Then if I want to do a write-up, I click that little 3 lines for the menu, game write-ups. Add write-up. I can write an incident report or a note, but you need an incident report for anything official. And I get a list of all the penalties that happened in the game. So this head contact major, whatever, hit 45 with his stick, whatever I want to write. Obviously, you'd want a better one than that, but whatever gets written up gets saved. We can see it on the website. If you're the deputy or the governor, we want to see what the write-ups are. We can view those on the website, and the other manager should be able to view the write-ups. You can't change them, but you can view them. If I am the one who wrote this write-up, I can edit it. But if it's a fellow ref who wrote it, I can see it, but I can't change it. So only the person who owns the official account that did this write-up can edit or delete this write-up. And then a note would be, I'm not happy about this, but it's not an official incident. And I think that's, and then they would also sign. So at the end, you're going to have, hopefully not all the same person, a list of digital signatures for that game. And I guess one other thing I should say is while you're doing it, if you're adding penalties or games and you're doing it in offline mode, you do have the option. After each thing, there's going to be little tabs that say sync game sheet. I can't remember if I mentioned this. You can click on that and it'll sync up whatever you've done. So these ones, if I add a goal, whatever I'm going to do. Let me just pick somebody. Oops, got to pick somebody. Oh, okay, well, I have it as live. If I didn't have it as live, there would be a button that says sync goals. I could click it and then we'll upload whatever goals I just entered. And I can't remember if I mentioned this before. I was saying how to have or maybe I didn't say it. If you're scorekeeping, you should have something to write notes on. Don't rely on being able to enter stuff in the app fast enough, because things just go fast in a game, especially if there's a lot of penalties. So you should have some kind of paper. You can use Gamesheets if you want. Gamesheets, they're expensive. Like they cost $1 each, just about, if you're getting them printed. But we do have, let me find my website. Under the Gamesheet app, I do have a link. I found this on some other website. Game Scratchpad. It's basically a page you can print, which has room for the goals and the penalties. So that's one way you can do it if you want. You still won't have your rosters handy, but that's something you can use. And this is what I do. I do this even if I'm using a paper game sheet. I'll still do this before I write it on the game sheet. I just take a line sheet of paper and I just write everything that happens. The time it happens, if it was a goal, who scored it, if it was a penalty, what the penalty was. I keep a little section at the top where I write down my shots after every period. I keep a little section in the corner. Remember I talked about game ejections. So every time a player gets head contact or a stick infraction, I just record it. And then later on, then I can see. If you're on your third one, usually if they're on the second one, I let them know it's their second one. And then on the third one, you can let the referee know that the player has had 3 stick infractions and they'll get ejected. This is kind of messy, but it's the only one I had a picture of. And I think that is everything I have. If you have any questions, there's lots of resources, but honestly, just go in there and try stuff. Just experiment with it. If you've done game sheets before, you probably need 5 minutes before you're going, okay, I see how this app works. And if you haven't, then, take a little more time with it. That's it. Good luck.